Hello, everyone. This is the Reverend, and I am hoping that you are having an excellent day today. Well, as always, let's get into things.
This happened to a family who were formerly Amish. The father and the mother were Amish and baptized, but when they hit about 20, they decided it wasn't the lifestyle for them nor their children. And they left. They moved up to Alaska and decided they would spend the rest of their days there. They still lived a very simple life, though they did have electricity. They grew what they could, and they had livestock and everything they could have in the climate they were living in. They hunted, fished, just a simple life. About 5 years in, the father, let's just call him Jebediah, he started noticing strange things happening on the outskirts of their property. Tree limbs broken for no real reason. And not something small enough that could have been a person. And some of them were just too high to be a person. One of the limbs he described was about 11 feet off the ground and 6 inches thick, and looked like it had just been snapped. He couldn't figure out why, or what had been doing it. Then the footprints appeared. I was up in this area. That's how I found the story. This was in 2006 that he told me. Now, he's an older individual. This happened in the 90s. When he showed me what he showed me, I was surprised. I'm a very large man. Probably slightly closer to 7 feet than I am 6 feet. And I wear a size 16 shoe. He took me to the edge of his property on I don't know if you'd call it a creek or a river, but it was fairly wide, about 30 feet wide. And at its deepest place, about 5 feet. Showed me a set of footprints. Took my shoe off, set my foot beside it. It had an additional 5 inches on my foot length. Now, I wear a size 16 shoe. That is basketball player size. You can't tell me that there's somebody running around Alaska with feet 5 inches longer than mine, just running around barefoot on this guy's property. And if he is, I want to stay the heck away from that guy. Well, continuing with the story, after about 5 years of this, noticing the weird things, the footprints, the creature, on just the outskirts, he'd start noticing it. It started actually being visible. Now, I'm not saying it was invisible before, but I'm saying it's not hiding as much after about 5 years. He couldn't tell what it was from the little he would be able to see from it from time to time. He knew it was large. bigger than most, if not all, of the bears he'd seen. And there were some fairly massive grizzly bears there. Another couple of years go by, and they're being careful, watching. One day, it walks out in front of him, about 50 feet away, just looks at him. Said the thing had to be 10 feet tall. He went back later and measured using a point of reference. And between 9.5 and 10 feet tall was the measurement he got. He couldn't get it exact, but his estimate was about 9 foot 10 inches due to the measurements he took. So pretty close to 10 feet. Something unusual he described was his eyes. They were hazel. He could see them clear enough to tell eye color. Wasn't brown, wasn't green, but something in between. A few years go by, and him and his family see these things more often. They never bother them, never hurt them, but they just let their presence be known. And he just decided he would, live and let live. He still went out and hunted. And if he noticed one, he would often head in the direction it was going. This typically led to better hunting. He felt they were just kind of helping out. He prayed that God would keep them safe, whatever they were. It's been about 15 years since they've been up there, and things are going great. Then, a cow dies. Now, cows die up there all the time. They're not easy to keep safe and alive. But this one died unexpectedly in August. Throat completely ripped out by a predator. That's not a bear, he thought to himself when he had first seen it. He said, maybe a cat, but they didn't have any cats in that area large enough to do that. There weren't any mountain lions in that general area. And on the rare occasions there were, he got rid of them pretty quickly. He continued to kind of be cautious and keep doing what he was doing. One day, he saw the Bigfoot he'd seen on a regular basis, the creature. And it gives a fake charge and stops. He backs up. He doesn't understand. And it motions its arm as if to slap and points back towards his house. Not fully understanding, he backs up and starts to head a little towards his house. Then he sees two more. He thinks they're flanking him. But he keeps going calmly. These ones aren't acting aggressive, they're just kind of following. When he reaches the edge of the wood line, he continues to walk, kind of watching the back of the woods, and he trips. Didn't see a stick. He hits the ground, and his face lands right beside a very unusual footprint. A canine, but massive. It was way too big to be a wolf. And none of their dogs got out this far. Though they did have a dog large enough to make this footprint. They had a St. Bernard. But he never came out this way. He stayed in close to the house. And then he realized the cow, the odd behavior. They're trying to protect me again. He goes in and tells his wife what's going on. And he gets the bigger gun. Really old-time gun. 50 caliber. He goes out and searches for them. He finds it. Not the creature he was expecting, not a giant dog, but he finds the body of one of the Bigfoot. Throat ripped out, body torn. Looked like it had been in the fight with the giant dog. It wasn't very big, though. He's a fairly large man himself, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds. This one was about the same size as him. So he thought to himself, this must be a child. And out from nowhere, a big Bigfoot, 8.5 feet tall, comes through, just kind of barreling. And it stops when it notices him. He sees it. He stands up and bows his head, tips his hat a little bit as a sign of respect. He doesn't know if it understands. But they've never heard him, so he wants to try to give some form of respect. And he backs away. He notices the large breasts. And he puts 2 and 2 together and thinks to himself, this is probably Mama. And then he bumps into something. He turns around, and the hazel-eyed Bigfoot, the one that's almost 10 feet tall, is standing right behind him. His face tries to make a smile, but it looks wrong. It looks as if it just can't make the expression the way it's trying to. But he understands and takes it for what it is. He smiles back, and then he looks at the body, and he looks at the Bigfoot with a look of sorrow, and he bows his head. The creature puts a heavy hand on his shoulder and pats him and points to the ground, right where he is. And he understands. He came into something he wasn't supposed to. He notices that there was no blood around this body, and there should have been a massive amount. This body was laid here. It's bait. He readies his gun. And kind of surveys the area around him. And he hears the sound. This sickening sound. Something between a wolf and a human. It just sounds wrong. And he hears the quietness of the forest. Everything is quiet except this sound. And it's rustling through the brush, heading this way. The Bigfoot that had befriended him points at a tree in the background. And he understands. He runs there as quick as he can and hunkers down, hoping he can be of some help. But he doesn't think he will. Then, a creature he could only describe as a werewolf bursts through the foliage, looking straight at the dead body and realizing too late that he came into a trap. A third Bigfoot, almost as large as the first male, comes down from a tree and lands a punch or hit of some sort of strike with the arm on the back of the creature's head, knocking it clean to the ground. Dazed, the other two grab a limb and they literally rip the creature apart. Over the next couple of years, he talks to a few of his neighbors. Now, these neighbors aren't close. The closest one is about 9 miles away. But he talks to a few of them and finds out they had missing livestock and the wild animals just weren't acting normal. They were far more skittish during that time period. But he thanks his lucky stars for his friends. He told me if I stayed there long enough, they would probably accept me. But he knew that I had better things that I had to do. More important work. He told me he wished that God would bless me as I had blessed others. And that's where that story ends. It was about 2005, 2006 when I first heard that story. I saw the footprints. I was very surprised. These creatures may not be so different from you and I than we once thought. Keep an open mind and an open heart. As always, God bless.